Windows 10 end of life is coming. Are you ready for Windows 11 migration? Welcome back to Tanium Tech Talks. I'm your host, Ashley McGlow. And, just like farmers plant crops in seasons, we go through IT seasons. Major operating system version upgrades are part of the care and feeding of an IT organization. But before we talk about how Tanium helps, I want to make sure you're following our Tuning Tanium monthly free training webinars for admins just like you. Check out the community link in the show notes below for recordings on topics like patching and endpoint performance, and then register and mark your calendar for these free training webinars coming up through the end of the year. Now, when I first started at Tanium, it was Windows 10 migration season. And now we find ourselves staring down the deadline of Windows 10 end of life. So today we are talking about Windows 11 migration using Tanium with Marcus Dean. Please introduce yourself for our audience, Marcus.
Hey, Ashley. So my name is Marcus Dean, like you just mentioned. I'm a technical account manager here with Tanium. Been with the company about 3 years. And lately I find myself supporting a lot of Windows 10 to Windows 11 migration efforts.
Well, Marcus, thanks for joining us on the show today. And I know, having been around the world of Windows as a former Microsoft employee for years, there's always some kind of new hitch when the new operating system comes out, and it's usually around hardware compatibility or application compatibility. So for this go round of OS migrations, what are we seeing as the things people are looking out for when they're going from Windows 10 to 11?
So we're seeing really strict hardware requirements this time, right? We are seeing hardware requirements that are stricter than ever before when we were talking about, say, migrating to Windows 8 or Windows 10. Especially these are going to be the processor requirements and TPM requirements. And unfortunately, this is new to a lot of people. So it's new to a lot of their hardware, right? Of course, this is something that's natural, migrating to a more secure system. These are all in place for good reason, but it's something that we've had to consider at a lot of customers so far when we're looking at their current hardware and readiness.
This sounds like a job for Tanium, because that's exactly what we do. We help people inventory their hardware and software and OS configurations. So how is Tanium helping folks solve this visibility problem into readiness for Windows 11?
So classic Tanium here, speed and scale, right? We are helping you hunt down all those compliant and non-compliant machines in your environment by looking at all of their hardware specs, letting you know what is and isn't compatible at a wave top level, and then letting you drill down to each one of those different hardware requirements to see what machines meet X requirement, what machines meet Y requirement. Of course, when we're talking about these, the benefit of some of these is that they are fixable, right? So potentially installing a new TPM, or more commonly upgrading memory or storage, right? There are places where you can get away with those upgrades, but there are other places where you are going to have to replace hardware. And Tanium is going to allow you to figure out what you can do with what you have, right? Of course, there are other places where you can upgrade what you have already. And that's another thing we're going to allow you to do after you find those machines.
So another thing, right, we've got several modules. I don't want to give away all the surprise just yet, but there's lots of ways Tanium can help with this. And another benefit of the Tanium platform is that visibility, but also the extensibility. In other words, you can put your own custom sensors in there. And so, Marcus, I've heard that you are packing some custom sensors with you today. What have you set up for us to help with this compatibility inventory?
So we've got two sensors. Luckily, they're essentially the same thing, right? One of them is going to allow us to filter out all those machines that are and are not compatible, and then see why they are or are not compatible. And the other one is, I'll show it off briefly, but it's really just for exporting that data, right? So this is the one that I like a lot, right? Is our Windows 11 compatibility. And this one has started with reporting because it is primarily used in a reporting dashboard that we'll get to in a minute. But it is going to be a lot more easy on the eyes, if you will. So if we're building questions around it, let's start with getting Windows 11 compatibility. So I want to see of all my machines out there right now, what is and is not compatible with all these new hardware requirements. So if I get reporting Windows 11 compatibility from all machines, we can see here as results come in, we can get an example of, or we can see what machines are and aren't compatible with X, Y, Z, right? So we can see what or is not compatible here, right? So we can see on OSs that aren't compatible with that upgrade, right? Say our Linux machines, our Solaris machines, whatever they may be. But for each one of our compatible machines here, we will simply get a compatible. That means we're good across the board for our storage, memory, TPM, processor, and secure boot requirements.
All right, I gotta just say something right here, man. This is super cool. I have never seen emojis in sensor results. That seems like it would take some work, but just high five to whoever wrote this sensor, because that's cool. That's the first for me. I've never seen emojis like that in results. Cool.
Yeah, I get that a lot actually. So the console has supported emojis in various places for quite a while, but I've not seen them used a whole lot. But in circumstances like this, it just makes this information so much easier to digest and look at, right? Because if we look at, say, I'm going to pull up the other version of this, which is just Windows 11 compatibility, which would be good for exporting this data, right? If I pull this up, then, we just have text results across the board, and you can look at it and find out, you can look at it and take important data away from this. In this case, these text, like these strings here, right, would be a lot better for exporting to a database or something like that, where you don't want to send the emoji. But in the case of this one here, it's just a lot more human readable, I found. And it's actually really funny. The Tanium console and TDS plays really nice with this, right? But what's really funny is seeing the PowerShell script that drives this sensor. Because if you open up that script, the emojis are just baked into it, right? You don't have to, you would expect to be looking at the, say like the ASCII code or the
Unicode or something like that.
Unicode. Yeah, excuse me. You'd be expecting to look at that in there, right? But open up this script in Visual Studio and you're just looking at emojis baked in right there. But I digress.
So my next question then is, there's a little mouse over for the copy of the value there. So can I like copy the cell value and then paste that into the filter? Like, how far does this go with the UI?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you're not going to be able to type this easily necessarily, but the console makes this really easy for you regardless. So let's say I want to filter by machines that aren't compatible with TPM, right? I can just mouse over this, copy cell value, and then I'm going to create a filter as normal. So I'll do a little drop down here, add a row for Windows 11 compatibility. Let's look at the TPM. We'll do contains our little X right here, right? Apply it.
Oh, sweet.
And now we've got all the machines that don't meet the TPM compatibility requirement. So nice and easy.
Oh, I love it. Nice.
Yeah, thanks for asking that too, because that's another thing about, not normally using, say, emoji in here, right? You have to consider, how do I filter on it? How do I use this, right? But again, the console makes it super easy for you. And we'll see that when we move to reporting as well.
All right. So walk us through the process. How did we get here? So we've got these snazzy new sensors. These are not out of the box. What do I need to do to get these in my environment?
For all of our customers, you're going to start with our community article. It's going to give you another rundown here on these sensors, what they gather. And then for our on-premise customers, you're going to have a link there to the files to download for this. That's just going to consist of some sensors, some computer groups, and then our reporting content. For cloud customers, you're familiar with the process being a little bit different by now. You can talk to your technical account manager. You will get those same files, and then we're going to work with you to get that content imported here, right? Or rather get those sensors imported here. But pretty standard across the board as far as importing sensors, importing computer groups, and then importing that reporting dashboard to go along with it.
I imagine some folks could just be as easy as emailing support@tanium.com, right? And then they can walk through that. Just say, here's the URL to the community article that I got out of this YouTube video. It's in the show notes below. Email support@Tanium, and we'll make sure that you get this in your environment, however necessary, right? So I've got the sensors imported. You said there's also a dashboard. What's that look like?
So after we've imported the sensor and cached it in TDS, and we've let Tanium do its thing, gathering all this goodness and actually recording all this data from our environment, right? We can go to our dashboards. And once we've uploaded it, we've let TDS gather this data, look at our Windows 11 compatibility dashboard. And this is the one that's going to be linked to from that content that you're going to be importing, right? So as you can see here, we have an overall compatibility section here. So we can just see at a glance in our environment, here's everything that is compatible and not compatible. So we can see how many machines we have that are compatible. This means that they are on Windows 10. They meet all the hardware requirements. You can upgrade them right now should you choose to. Not compatible, and then NA on Windows 11. This is what we want to see, of course. Over time, as we deploy Windows 11, we're going to want to track the OSs out in our environment. So right here, we've got the top Windows workstation OSs. So we can see over time, this is how many we have of each. Ideally, over time, we'd want to see that nice green line for Windows 11 going up, and then all these other ones going down, right? So as we do that deployment, which we're going to be showing off here in a minute, we can track that over time to see how effective it's been.
Now that's a thorough lab environment. You've got Windows 8.1 in there, man. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Somebody got that in here, and glad to see it, or not glad to see it, but it gives us some variety here in our graph, right?
Yeah. So we'll get them upgraded. All right. Well, this is great. So now here's the hardware information. So we can see what specifically we need to target as far as like PC refresh type examples.
Yeah. So of course, hardware refresh is going to be a big part of this conversation when we're talking about the Windows 11 migration. There are some things you can upgrade, like the memory and the storage, but there are some things that you simply can't upgrade in some circumstances. In environments that deploy a lot of laptops for their workstations, for example, you're not going to have the option to upgrade your TPM or your processor, and possibly not your memory either. In 2023, that is a hot commodity, having upgradable memory in a laptop. But regardless, we're going to be able to see all those incompatible models. Of course, this is going to be for deciding, what do I need to replace? Of all my machines out there, what doesn't meet these requirements that I'm going to have to refresh sometime? And if we go over each one of these, you can see, we've got all these different machines here. It's a lab environment, so forgive all the virtual machines, but
yeah,
same exact concept. So we can see in this case, our XPS 15 9550 doesn't meet this. Our ThinkPad over here doesn't, but you're going to be able to see the top 10 models in your environment that aren't compatible, and then we could target those for upgrades or for replacement in the future. We're going to track what that looks like compared to last month. So last month we had this many machines that weren't compatible. Now we have this many, right? And we're just going to get a nice little indication of that trend over time.
And of course, this is the power of Tanium dashboards. It's taking the data, we're drilling down, we're finding what's not compatible, giving you some extrapolated details around the models. And because this is in the dashboard, that doesn't mean it's the only way to view it. We could do this in Interact and drill down there, saved questions, lots of places to get this information in Tanium. But this is going to make it visible for business decisions to be made, and our managers who like to get charts and graphs. You can just export this whole dashboard page here and email them the HTML file, or even send it out through Connect for reporting. So lots of cool things here that we could do with this. What are these details at the bottom?
So this is going to link to reports that break down each one of these different hardware readiness requirements. So we can see again at a glance how many machines we have that don't meet X hardware requirement, and then we can see compared to last week, this is what our numbers looking at, right? If we want some more information about that, we can click into each one of these. So our insufficient storage one here, it's going to open up the report that is driving that data behind it. And this is going to show us all of our machines that are not compatible because they don't have enough storage. Of course, this is going to show us some additional information alongside that, but we will see that in just a second once it loads up. All right, so we can see all this information that we have in TDS, right? All this other good stuff that's in there. And then we can see our computer name, model, and then all of our hardware assessments for each piece of hardware, right? With, of course, all of these sharing the trait that they're not compatible with storage, but we can also see what else applies to them, right? Another cool thing about TDS is, of course, if we wanted to get some more information from here, we could pick this machine or these machines and drill down Interact. We can see more information about that individual machine. TDS is really cool. I won't get super into it, but you can see what we're pulling back here, right?
And for those of you who might be wondering, what is TDS? So that's the Tanium data service, right? That's our data caching layer so that information that's critical to the business like this, we can show it for both online and then offline machines with the last status they returned. So all right, I got a question, Marcus. So we've got really good laser visibility on what the problem is. How do we fix it?
So good question. Of course, we got all this information here, but what do you do? Like, what do you do with it? What can Tanium do for you? And the answer here is a lot. So there are two paths that we could go here when we are talking about getting machines to Windows 11, right? So once you have those compatible machines, once you know what to target, and you can do that, of course, based on the information in this dashboard from a save question interact, whatever it might be, we have two routes. We can upgrade those machines in place if they are compatible for it. So that is going to be via that deploy in place upgrade, right? So those familiar with deploy, you may or may not be familiar with the in place upgrade packages that we're able to push out. Those packages are going to look like this. They're going to be importable from the predefined software gallery, or if you've imported them before, of course, they will be there. And we're going to have packages for each major version of Windows 11, like 22H2, right?
Okay, so I'm looking here. We got Windows 11 version 22H2 or whatever flavors available at the time. And then you've got pre-cache, direct cache. Looks like there's a couple. There's a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Help us understand, what are these phases?
So yeah, when we're talking about that in-place upgrade with deploy, we're going to be looking at a few packages that consist of 2 to 3 phases of that upgrade, right? If you have already imported these from the predefined package gallery, you will find them under your software packages. They're going to consist of in-place upgrade to Windows. Let's search Windows 11. In-place upgrade to Windows 11. We will see each phase of them here. We have our phase 1, our phase 2, and our phase 3. These are going to consist of file caching and initial scan of that endpoint for compatibility. Second phase is going to be if a machine did not meet those compatibility requirements. Let's say we targeted those machines with our deployment for some reason, right, or somehow. It is going to be a rescan of those computers to determine compatibility. And then phase 3 is going to be actually kicking off that in-place upgrade, whether it be on a scheduled basis or if you give users the ability to do that on their own time with self-service, right? So 2 to 3 phases. Phase 1 is our cache. Phase 2 is a rescan if a machine was not compatible and you say upgraded the hardware there. And then phase 3 is going to be that actual upgrade itself.
Fantastic. So that's an in-place upgrade. And I'm going to ask you a very leading question here. What if I need to deploy a fresh machine with Windows 11?
So let's say that you had machines that weren't upgradable and you had to replace them. So you've got all this new hardware you need to bring online. You need to bring it online with a good Windows 11 install, whether it be a fresh install or some kind of golden image, and you need to have the Tanium client on it right away. That is where Provision's got you covered. So Provision is going to allow us to do that bare metal imaging of those machines that are compatible, right? So we've got all this new hardware online. We know that it's all compatible with Windows 11 now, but we still need to get it online with either a fresh Windows install or with that golden image that a lot of people use. And we needed to have the Tanium client, right? So we've got all this hardware. We need to get it deployed. What do we do? Provision is what we are going to use to actually cover that. Provision is going to allow us to create an OS bundle to deploy out to that hardware. Without getting too into it, basically it's going to allow us to upload an image of our liking, whether we've captured it from a Windows install ISO, whether it's an image we've made ourselves and then captured, whatever it may be. We can upload that image, choose what machines to push it out to, and then push it out with any additional drivers and packages or custom files and scripts that we might want to do. And so now we've gotten all of our machines upgraded in place via deploy that we're eligible to, and we've installed via Provision all of our new hardware.
And then we come full circle back to those dashboards that you showed us earlier, where we can then see, okay, after we've done our in-place upgrades with deploy, we've gotten our new hardware in that was now compatible. We've deployed that with Provision. And so now we can see those fresh results in those same dashboards. I really like the full circle story. This is unique because in the Windows 10 era for migrations, we didn't have the provision module. And if you'd like to learn more about the provision module, that's one of our most popular episodes. You can go back in the YouTube channel here where you found this episode and go look for that provision episode. I'll also link it in the show notes as well below. So Marcus, I'm really curious. It sounds like you've been doing some of this work with customers. What's been the feedback that you've heard from people?
Overwhelmingly positive. So we built this in conjunction with a few of our customers because they had this problem of they need to upgrade to Windows 11 and they need to know where they can and can't do that. And so we built this in conjunction with them, taking into consideration, what do they care about? Like which of these metrics do they care about the most? How can we make this as digestible for them as possible? And what can we do to help them, actually make that move to Windows 11? As you mentioned earlier, having this information is great, but there's a few ways that we can help them actually make this migration. What we came up with was this view you have here of just this high level overview of compatibility, deployment progress, models that need to be replaced, and then, of course, metrics about each one of those hardware requirements and where we are deficient, right? So overwhelmingly positive. I've gotten a lot of good feedback about this. We've had a lot of great input as to how to make it better. And I feel very confident in the end result that we have here.
Well, I can only say back in my day, I wish we had tools like this when we were doing OS migrations. Wow. So I'm looking at the clock here as we wrap up this episode. Any last thing you want to leave with our viewers?
Of course, the community article will explain how to get this content, give another overview of what it went over. And if you have any issues actually getting it or getting it imported, please hit up support@tanium.com and we will get you sorted.
Well, Marcus, thank you so much for this demonstration of what the Windows 11 migration capabilities are here within Tanium. And as you said, I can see this is really going to save folks a lot of time. So full circle there, we can find the endpoints that are ready to go and get them in place upgraded with deploy. We can then show the ones that we're going to need to buy some new hardware and then deploy those with provision. So, wow, that really is a full service solution for Windows 11 migrations, plus the dashboards to make our managers happy with the reports that they love and those great colors that they like to see, right? So thanks for this again today, Marcus. And for those of you who are watching, like you said, check out the community article. It's linked in the show notes below, and email support@Tanium if you got questions, or reach out to your account team. So folks, that wraps us up for this episode of Tanium Tech Talks. And until next time, go Tanium.